Welcome and good evening. This is Linda Criticus from Your Nurse Advocate Consulting. And tonight I have a very special guest with me. His name is Chris. And we're here to talk about a topic that is relevant to him and also to myself. And it's in regards to caring for your aging parent and some of the concerns you might have. Tonight, we're going to talk about his perspective as the son of aging parents and what things are important to him or concerns that he may have in regards to helping care for his parents as they age and go through that journey of aging. So Chris, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's video.
Thank you.
And also I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are in the family. Where are you in the realm of siblings to your parents?
So I'm the oldest of three, fairly close in age to a sister who lives near to my parents. And then I have a brother who is not too far away, but definitely more distant than I am from where my parents currently live. And my parents are in their late 60s to mid 70s. They're in that age range at this point. And they're at the point where they're fully lucid with everything going on. They've got all their wits about them, but we're at that point where we need to have some of those kind of uncomfortable conversations about, what they want to do if there's things we can't take care of them of, and what are going to be some of those steps. And they seem a little, they're a little hesitant to go into some of those discussions. And then also kind of relevant is just very recently have been talking to a friend quite a bit who also has some aging parents, and his mom is in her early 80s, and his dad recently passed. So again, it's been relevant. There's been a lot of discussions about this with him and I as well, talking about his mom as well. So it's just that time in my age where a lot of friends, a lot of family, where people are starting to get to that point where at least it needs to be a very serious discussion before it ends up being a forced discussion.
So what do you think are some of your concerns as you see this coming into fruition with your friend and with your parents? What are some of the things that are your concerns or you feel need to be discussed at this point?
Well, honestly, I feel like one of the hardest aspects of this is just broaching the subject. I feel like just touching on your own mortality and aging and that sort of thing is tough for every aging parent. And I know both with myself and speaking with my parents, it's still very awkward to have those sort of conversations. They want to be very private about that. And then I know similarly with my friend, with the recent experience he's had with his mom, she's very adamant sometimes that she does not want to have any additional long-term care or other things, but at the same time she says that will then say, well, but I realize I'm going to need it, but I don't want it, but I know I'm going to need it. So there's this kind of conflict in how to help your parent through that sort of conflict, be able to bring it up ourselves, have those discussions and really get to a productive place instead of just a stalemate in that awkward silence, talking to each other.
Have you started to have some of these conversations?
I'm very much in the preliminary stages. I actually recently speaking with my parents, just said, hey, we have some upcoming events for the summer, like everyone, they have some big events over the summer. And I said, after we get through the end of the summer, I really think we need to sit down as a family and start talking through some of this stuff. So for me right now, this is the perfect time to really start thinking about it, as I need to have a game plan kind of going into that. And then again, referencing my friend, he's already a couple steps into that, where they're into some long-term care planning things, and he's started to experience a lot of that pushback and an uncomfortableness that I'm anticipating, but I haven't actually had yet.
So do you feel at this point with your parents that you would be prepared to step up if needed? And if you weren't prepared, what would help you be prepared? What would you think would be one of the most important things to have in place in order for you to feel comfortable and prepared?
So from one side, I say I'm prepared in that I'm ready to act as necessary, right? That's just that point. I understand that. But the flip side of that coin is that I feel like even though I'm a person who tends to do a lot of research and understanding my own, there's enough complexities with the subject and enough emotional kind of power tied to it that
Mm-hmm,
again, I feel like, well, maybe I don't understand all the aspects. And
mm-hmm.
I'm fairly certain I don't, right? There's avenues and things I'm not aware of. And then even with that, again, it's how do I broach that conversation, especially with that child and parent dynamic? Sometimes it gets a little bit harder to discuss some of those things in that parent child dynamic, as opposed to even with another third party.
Yeah, it's very hard for parents to state that they need help or that they want to accept help because they've always been the parent and they've always been the one that has been the caretaker and the ones that have cared for the child. It's hard to have those role reversals and to have those conversations because it doesn't make sense. It takes away some type of independence or control that the parent has always had in their life. And a lot of times parents, all of us, we don't want to admit our own mortality or morbidity. Those discussions are very difficult to have, just even amongst, spouses, much less parents to children. So those role dynamics and those responsibilities tend to be difficult even in the best circumstances. And then with you being the oldest, do you feel that a lot of those responsibilities or those conversations fall on your shoulders, or do you think that those conversations will be shared amongst your siblings with your parents?
I feel like I'm going to be the one that'll need to take point and lead it, and then help
Mm-hmm,
talk to my siblings who will probably share the same concerns I do, but
mm-hmm,
probably be unwilling to broach it as it's even uncomfortable for me. And then not having a designated person per se, I think it'll be looked upon as me to be the person to speak up and kind of establish how we're going to tackle the whole thing, and then try to get some level of buy-in from both my siblings and my parents and how we're going
mm-hmm,
to approach it. And
mm-hmm,
one thing you touched on too, with that difficulty of talk about your own mortality, I think one aspect that I'm really feel strongly about, but yet at the same time works against me, is I really want to have these discussions earlier on, when, like I said, when my parents are not feeling some of those effects and they're at their full capacity for things, that they're not slowing down as much with some of that. I'd like to have those conversations now, rather than when they go, okay, I'm starting to realize some of these things are occurring, and start to relinquish a little bit of some of that control. But I actually don't want to have that conversation. I want to have it before any of that happens, so I know that whatever
mm-hmm.
agree upon is exactly what they want as well.
Mhm. So you want to be more proactive in your approach and utilize whatever advanced directives or living wills they have in place. Use that as a working tool so that you know that it's in place in case you need it, but it can be changed at some point in time based on, need or dynamics of clinical change.
Correct. I feel like getting that an honest conversation, and how they feel things, they want things approached now. As long as I know
Mhm,
they're speaking in the realm of reality, not just ignoring their own mortality and aging, I'd rather know what they want now, because I know even trying to be as separate and making as good a solid decision making as I can as they get older, if left to me or any of my siblings, right, there's going to be a strong emotional component to it, and it's going to be more what we think we would want, less
mhm,
than what necessarily we know what our parents want. So I want to know what my parents want now, because I
mhm,
know any of those gaps, I'm going to fill in with what I think they might want, or how I think I would want it. And that I hope that's close, but why guess when they're right here and I can talk to them and have a discussion again, but no one really enjoys having that discussion.
right. Because you exactly. And you don't want to be reactive. You really do want to be proactive. Do you think you and your siblings will all be on the same page, or do you feel that initiating these discussions now will help all of you be on the same page because your parents can now state what they want versus when a situation occurs and now you're all reacting to the acute issue that's happening?
Yeah, I definitely think being proactive will help here, because I think initially there'll be some ice that needs to be broken, And I think actually my siblings as well, just like my parents and even myself, right? It's uncomfortable to talk about. So there
Mhm.
might be hesitation of, oh, well, this can wait a little bit, or maybe not now. But it's going to take time, I feel like, for even just as siblings, for us to adjust to whatever the wishes of our parents are, just so we can mentally adjust to whatever those things are and mentally prepare ourselves, in addition to obviously our parents. So there's
Mhm.
a level of adjustment that just because you know the raw facts, I feel like there's this emotional settling period that has to happen both with my parents and with us, and
Mhm.
then we can kind of be a little bit better in getting to work, embracing it, and being cohesive in our approach.
Right, and the logistics of getting everything in place, an advance directive or a living will, and making sure that everybody is all on the same page with physicians, and because usually people have more than one physician, so getting all the physicians on the same page, getting siblings on the same page, making sure everything is in order logistically all takes time, and the approach should be proactive. So if there is a need for this, the discussions do need to happen earlier. So, in saying that, is there anything you want to add to what you've already said, Chris?
Um, I am curious if, just given this role, what sort of recommendations do you have in general as well for an approach or a structure for someone to start tackling this with their parents? And I know, you offer some services that can help as well. How do we
Mm-hmm.
tie this in? What sort of approaches should people start with? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of just a general framework to try to have these discussions, as well as
Mm-hmm.
how do they realize when's the right time to maybe look for someone like an advocate that can help assist with these, whether it is directly or indirectly?
Those are all very good questions. Actually, any point in time to start having this conversation is never too early. It is never too early to start planning. Usually what I recommend is that the siblings have a conversation at first to just say, we need to talk to mom and dad about these things. We should have a family meeting, maybe not during a special event because the focus then takes away from the event, but during another time when the family is together. Just say, I'd really like us to have a family meeting with mom and dad just to talk about and just see what their feelings are, see where they're at with this, and all of us, because your siblings will have feelings and may have feelings that you may not even realize that they have strong feelings in regards to what types of what types of things they feel are important for your parents, or who should be taking the responsibility, or what types of roles they should have in regards to all this. You may have siblings that may say, oh, they're too young, this is too early, we don't need to talk about this now, I don't know why you're bringing this up, this is not good, you're just it's premonition that something bad is going to happen. Or you may have siblings that say, oh my gosh, we should have done this 10 years ago, this is all okay. But by meeting with your siblings first and having them understand what the purpose of the meeting is, and then involving your parents, because your parents need to be involved in all the decisions, and then just sitting down and just having an open discussion, like a discovery discussion, in regards to what are some things that are important to you, how would you like us to handle it. We know that you're healthy, we know that you're vital, we know that you have all your functions, we want to keep you as independent and functionally okay for as long as we can, but in the case that you're not, we want to plan ahead. And because, as you said earlier, you like to plan, you like to your data, you will like to research everything, they should know this about you. So they should know that this is something that you don't want to wait till the last minute when something bad happens and be reactive. So if you're having problems with that discussion, or if you're having problems getting everyone on the same page, that's the time to call an advocate. An advocate can help with that conversation, can translate the medical information into information that is easily assimilated by the layperson. A lot of times people don't know what they don't know. A lot of times, and doctors don't always communicate. Healthcare providers don't always communicate. People perceive a lot of times what they want to hear, and then that becomes their reality. So they may not even understand that their own issues or medical conditions aren't as severe as they think they are. And you see a decline. And you may say that to them, but they may be totally denying it because they have accommodated to that decline. Their other parts of their body have accommodated, or they have structured their life to accommodate to those changes or to those areas of decline. Whereas they may not realize that this planning needs to take place. To me, an advocate can help at any level of the planning process. We can be part of the initial discussion, although I don't necessarily recommend it because we're a stranger coming into a very intimate setting. So I recommend that the siblings communicate first and then bring in the parents. And then if there are still issues, you bring in the advocate. We have a lot of information on our website in regards to this. We have information, we have templates that you can use to have discussion points in regards to making sure that you're checking all the boxes when you have these agendas. And we suggest that you have a scripted agenda when you have this conversation, that the conversation can start out free flowing, but that you have certain key points that you want to hit during this discussion. If the discussion gets too emotional, stop the discussion and then reconvene at another time. But always know that the discussion will be continued. Now, sometimes parents will say, oh, the only time we get together is because you guys want to talk about our death. You want to talk about what bad things are going to happen to us. So you've got to temper it. You know your parents better than anybody else in the world, but they also know you. But you're a family and you're there to support each other. So the key to all of this has to be shown throughout all of the conversation that you're there to support. You're not there to take away anything. You're not there to enforce anything. You're there to support based on what they feel is important in their life as they move forward. So advocacy and advocates will help at any point in time. As everyone knows, we have a great website out there. You can contact Pam or myself at any point in time in regards to any questions or concerns that you may have in regards to advocacy. We're always willing to answer any questions, do a discovery call with you, and even meet in person and share our knowledge to help you move forward with those very important conversations and decisions. I have, in my career, I have seen the exact opposite, where planning wasn't done. Families didn't know what their parents want. Their parents had a devastating incident, and now the family is at odds because nobody really knew what their parents' wishes were. Nothing had been planned. Nobody even knew where bank accounts were or insurance cards were, much less any of their wishes in regards to life-sustaining efforts, or if they wanted to be placed in a nursing home, or even how they saw their whole healthcare journey being taken care of in these last, phases of their lives. So it's really important that planning gets done earlier than later, because then everybody can be on the same page. So any last thoughts, Chris?
No, that's all good to hear from a kind of a planner type person like myself.
Yes.
And I think referencing your website will be nice just to get that initial discussion going and really help me just with a level of comfort to know I'm hitting some of those key points. So thank you very much.
And just know that you can always call Your Nurse Advocate Consulting at any time in regards to this to help you along with that conversation. And as I said, on our website, there are templates that you can utilize to help you plan that agenda, help you plan those conversations. So with that, I'd like to say good night. Thank you all for joining. Please make sure that you check out our website and let us know if you need anything, and we'll see you soon in our next video. Thank you all.
Thanks.